Point of order.
The gentleman from California reserves a point of order.
Amendment to the amendment in the nature of a
Without objection, the amendment will be considered as read. The gentlelady from Georgia is recognized to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I brought my amendment to this committee today because I believe in the First Amendment, and this committee should be committed to recognizing and respecting the rights of journalists. We cannot pick and choose when we want to abide by the rules and when we want to bend and break them. This political witch hunt has already cost the American people millions of tax dollars. And I implore my colleagues across the aisle to accept that there is no evidence supporting an impeachment or criminal offense committed by President Biden. How is this contempt resolution for Mr. Zonwitzer the best use of taxpayer dollars? It most certainly is not. There are a million other issues that we could be focused on today in this markup that will make a positive difference for our communities, but we could be talking about gun violence prevention, criminal justice reform, or we could be talking about commerce protections. Instead, we are here to undermine First Amendment protections. Almost a year ago to date, members of this very committee sat in this very room protecting journalists from disclosing records, contents of communication, documents, and information gathered and created in the course of their work when the federal government tries to compel them. That same bill, which received unanimous consent in this committee, then went on to pass on the House floor. Mr. Zonwitzer is a journalist, plain and simple. That is all that he is. He was working in his capacity as a journalist while working as a ghostwriter for the president. And according to this committee's votes at last year's markup, Mr. Zonwitzer is an innocent man who should not be subjected to this political circus. Last year, this committee, in the need to protect journalists, we did that. We worked last year to protect our journalists. What happened? What's happened since last year? Have we decided that a candidate is more important than the rights our Constitution affords us? I surely hope not, because we're all going to lose if we sacrifice the very rights that we claim to hold so dear and so high. Today, I am urging this committee to show that it is not a hypocritical one. Please don't be hypocritical in front of the American people. The powers of this committee are strong and should not be used only to protect the rights of some members that they have deemed as friends. To hold Mr. Zonwitzer in contempt today, those who vote in favor of this resolution will show the American people that you are willing to play with the rules and show an empty hand. Freedom of the press is protected whether or not we like what is being reported. Let's not make a mockery of the First Amendment in this committee today. This committee needs to respect Mr. Zonwitzer's right not to turn over his source material. And I yield.
Gentlelady yields back. Gentleman from North Carolina is recognized, and I'll come back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I
beg your pardon. You called Mr.
California withdraws his
I withdraw my amendment.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reporter's privilege is not remotely applicable to the circumstances at hand. First of all, what reporters are mainly protected from in the case where it would apply is disclosing their sources. In this case, the president may not know who Mr. Zwanwitzer's source was, but everybody else does. It was the president. He was the one who read verbatim to him from classified information. Moreover, Mr. Swanitzer may have acted at times in his life as a journalist. He was not acting as a journalist now. The reporter's privilege does not take people who have functioned as journalists at one point or another and set them apart as exempt from the ordinary processes of law applicable to every other American. It is very specific. Reporters are entitled to the reporter's privilege when they were engaged in news gathering. Mr. Swanitzer was not doing that. He was speaking with President Biden to help President Biden write a book. He was a scrivener for President Biden. So it's irrelevant whether he may have been a reporter in some other circumstance. There is no remote connection between the reporter's privilege and the circumstances at hand. And therefore, be no hypocrisy in pursuing enforcement of the subpoena. And with that, I yield to the gentleman. Well, I think first to the chairman.
Well, I was just going to add one other fact. The government already got the information. Notwithstanding he tried to destroy it, the government's got the information. They went and got it off the computer. So the part of the government that's got it's the part of the government that can prosecute him, for goodness sake. I yield back.
Another great point. And I'll also yield to the gentleman from California, Mr. Issa.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, and I'll be brief. The claim that this committee, which has protected the First Amendment as one of its most primary responsibilities, is patently simply not true. I think the most important thing that we decide here today is, will we assert the committee's jurisdiction? And that's what we're doing. Again, this committee held, for example, Harriet Miers in contempt for not showing up. She was the attorney to the president. Why did we do so? Were we ignoring attorney-client privilege? No. But actions had been taken that were not covered by it, and we sought to have the information. So I think I heard the gentlelady on her amendment. I can't begin to understand how she could conflate that, but I will predict here today that if the shoe is on the other foot in the future, she will make the opposite decision. And that is something that you should be ashamed of. Were the shoe on the other foot? By the way, just so you know, this committee, or the January 6th committee, held people in contempt and actually has incarcerated them for not being willing to say things about conversations with another president. And you know what? Those people wrote books too. And with that, I thank the gentleman and yield back.
And I thank the gentleman. I again yield to the chairman.
I'm good.
Okay. Well, it's very simple. I mean, it utterly, it's a little bit, reminds me of the White House's bad faith in showing up with the whole idea 2 days before the hearing. It is a contrived defense. This objection is so utterly frivolous legally as to call into question the good faith with which it is offered, and I yield time back.
Gentleman yields back. Question, gentlelady from gentlelady from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to strike the last word.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you. This markup is so shameful. It's craven, actually. I'm appalled that here we are again with a desperate Republican Party. Does nobody on the other side of that aisle regret what you are doing today? Does nobody see the shame-filled behavior? If you want to learn about President Biden's love of his family and his loss, read the book. Don't go after a ghostwriter. With that, I will yield the gentlewoman from Georgia my time.
Thank you so much to the gentlewoman from Pennsylvania. And talking in response to what was just mentioned, the bill that you actually voted for, in favor for, has a definition that would qualify Zalwitzer as a journalist in his capacity writing Biden's book. That was H.R. 4250, the Press Act. And the term covered journalist means a person who regularly gathers, prepares, collects, photographs, records, writes, edits, reports, investigates, or publishes news or information that concerns local, national, or international events or other matters of public interest for dissemination to the public. And I yield back to the gentlewoman.
Gentlelady yields back. The question occurs on the amendment offered by the gentlelady from Georgia. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. No. Opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The roll call being requested, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Jordan?
No.
Mr. Jordan votes no. Mr. Issa? Mr. Issa votes no. Mr. Gates? Mr. Biggs? Mr. Biggs votes no. Mr. McClintock? Mr. McClintock votes no. Mr. Tiffany?